organized crime groups in the United States. And nowadays, some of them are becoming more powerful, more violent, and even wealthier than the old La Cosa Nostra mafia organization. To some extent, the outlaw to the American mind means the independent person, the person who is operating outside the system. Remember that some of our political tradition comes out of a revolution. So Americans like to think of themselves as being independent. And then in America, we've always had this fascination with guns, which is unfortunate. We have too many guns in America. So the romanticizing of the mafia is almost part of a pattern that we go through in romanticizing the outlaw in the United States. That's an old American tradition that goes back to the Western novels and Billy the Kid and Bonnie and Clyde, and you can get too deep into American psychology, and who knows what that is. I mean, it's a mix of many, many different people looking at things in somewhat different ways.
Bonnie and Clyde were boldly keeping a rendezvous with some of their henchmen near Grapevine, Texas. While they waited, they drank whiskey, made love, and practiced their marksmanship by shooting at birds. Presently, two state patrol officers sighted the pair and decided to investigate. They approached Bonnie and Clyde totally unaware of their identity. Upon sight of the officers, the two outlaws demonstrate their talent. Cold-blooded murder of police officers. This atrocious killing sealed the doom of Bonnie and Clyde. For every peace officer in the entire Southwest became so enraged after the news of this killing that they pledged themselves to sleepless days and nights in search of the murdering pair. The heroic effort on the part of the dedicated law enforcement finally paid off one day on a dirt road deep in the state of Louisiana. For 3 days and nights, the officers lay in wait on this road. But Bonnie and Clyde were ready.
It looks like the car, fellas.
As the sedan approached, the men became certain that the passengers were none other than Bonnie and Clyde.
That's him, for sure. I'll guarantee you. Get ready now. That's him, fellas. Release his boy. Let him have it. Look down.
Death is at the steering wheel. The inevitable end. Retribution. Here is Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker, who died as they lived, by the gun. Bonnie is seen leaning against Clyde. Clyde was a master gunman. Seldom did anyone live when Clyde got the first shot. Clyde Barrow's mania, his guns, were seized at last by the law. The vast array of weapons could have easily equipped a small army, containing not only machine guns and rifles, but 1,500 rounds of ammunition. The Bonnie and Clyde death car. Every one of these hundreds of holes was made by custom-made, steel-jacketed bullets brandished by the police officers. They were delivered with such force that they passed through the driver's side door, struck Clyde, continuing through Bonnie's body, out the passenger side door. Any one of these bullets would have been enough to kill both gangsters, but no one was going to take any chances. Since the ambush took place on Clyde's side, his body was riddled with many more bullets than his companion, Bonnie. This is the tragic fate of the couple who had killed 14 people and survived so many gun battles, proving that no one is invincible in the eyes of the law.
Bonnie's burial was attended only by close friends and relatives, numbering about 150, including her sister Billy Mace, who was a prisoner of the law, charged with the killing of 2 late highway patrolmen, for which crime her sister Bonnie had been accused. Billy Mace was attended at the funeral by 2 deputy sheriffs and a matron of the jail. Clyde Barrow's mother and father, seen in the background, and his brother also paid their respects to the girl who was Clyde's only friend and who died by his side. In the last few words of Bonnie's own poem, which she penned just prior to her death, to a few it means grief, to the law it's relief, but it's death to Bonnie and Clyde.
No punishment can be too severe for these public enemies. They deserve the whipping post or worse.
The infamous gangster, Charles Arthur Pretty Boy Floyd, was not romanticized by the press like his contemporaries. Instead, he was portrayed as a cold-hearted, ruthless criminal who in reality did not commit many of the crimes attributed to him. Born and raised in Oklahoma, Floyd worked on his family's dirt farm, struggling for years through drought and hardship until the area became part of the Great Dust Bowl. Almost destitute, Floyd knew where there was money. He obtained a pistol and drove to St. Louis, where he committed a quick payroll robbery. On June 17, 1933, 5 men were machine gunned to death in the Kansas City train station by 3 gunmen. Floyd and his new partner, Adam Ricchetti, were identified as the killers. To his dying day, Floyd insisted he had not been in on the Kansas City massacre. Time ran out on Pretty Boy Floyd on October 22, 1934. Trying to escape a local dragnet, FBI bullets cut him down. FBI agent Melvin Purvis asked him as he lay dying, "Are you Pretty Boy Floyd?" "I am Charles Arthur Floyd," he said, and he died.
Help the federal drive to put the gunmen and the racketeer behind the bars where they belong.
John Dillinger was America's classic bank robber. Born in Indianapolis in 1903 to a typical Midwestern family, his mother died when he was 4 years old. After a stint in the Navy, Dillinger was unjustly sent to jail for a grocery store holdup. An ambitious but bitter young man, he quickly escaped. His gang would soon carry out the most successful bank robberies in the country's history. Within the space of 12 months, Dillinger robbed more banks and stole more money than any other gangster had in their entire careers. And greatly admired gangster managed to escape again by carving a phony pistol out of soap. Now, Dillinger had an army of law enforcement agents after him. Finally cornered in the alley behind a movie theater, Dillinger was reportedly shot in the back by agents of the FBI. No hard evidence was presented that the man shot was actually John Dillinger, and many witnesses commented that the corpse had brown eyes compared to the gangster's blue eyes. Only a handful of men, including a young J. Edgar Hoover, knew the truth. Regardless, Dillinger left his mark on history.
Who writes the history and who interprets the history, that's all that matters. So the history of the Mafia, which is yet to be written in any sense of being objective about the larger view, they are seen even now as rather urban cowboys, which is what they are in a sense. They're urban-centered, and they are brigante. I mean, they're like going back to there was a certain heroic halo over the heads of the brigante in the period when the Bourbons were so despised in the Garibaldi period and the period before and after. But they came here to the United States, and they took advantage of what was to be dealt with. What was to be dealt with? Well, in the beginning, you had the Italian ghettos in New Orleans, in Philadelphia, in New York, in Chicago, you name it, Providence, Rhode Island. These were industrial towns which had infusing into their labor forces the laboring Italians who could not speak the language, but under padrones were able to find opportunities to subsist and to survive, as the first generation must always survive, being serfs. So you had those who were serfs under the old medieval system of southern Italy, under the what was left of that old regime, coming to the United States and still remaining serfs.
Well, around 1890, you had now the second wave of what we call Italian. Right now, it would be official to call them Italian because Italy became a country around 1870. We did have Italians here in 1850. This was the largest Italian population in the United States. But they were from Genoa, Rome, and at that time they didn't call themselves Italian. They were Sicilian. It was after the Civil War that the Italians were brought here and worked for about $1 a day. That $1 a day in some places was listed like this: $2 for white people, $1.50 for black people, and $1 for Dagos. If they call you a Dago, it's no good. Even to this day, it's no good. I know when you call me a Dago, you're not my friend.
Every immigrant population, we are a nation of immigrants. You remember John Kennedy, our president, wrote a book when he was a younger man called A Nation of Immigrants. He was thinking of the Irish, perhaps, but our Italian Americans are one of the most glorious parts of our population. I mean, they are really wonderful, and they contribute throughout our lives in fabulous ways. But every immigrant population has brought with it problems of adjustment.
Nobody leaves home if they're happy. You would never have immigration from Italy or anywhere if they were happy in Calabria or happy in Apulia or happy in Sicily or happy in Naples or wherever. They all leave miserable people. The people who leave home leave with anger and tears. And they are coming out of desperation to someplace else. It is difficult to leave home. You're not going to be met at the boat as it lands at the docks of Manhattan or Philadelphia with a bunch of people waving the flags and putting flowers around your neck. So leaving home is difficult. Desperation is what drives certain people who are willing to take chances. Now, a lot of people can be desperate, and they just can't stand the possibility of sinking in the sea. So why take a chance? But those who took the chances were the angrier, the more driven, the more frustrated, and the better criminals.
One thing he brought over with him among his hard work ethic and family is suspicion. So the biggest suspicion he had was of authority. Well, that's why he left Italy.
Now, these are people who came from Sicily, mainly, here in Louisiana, and they came because of economic necessity, not because of political prosecution or political reasons. And they came here not with the idea of remaining here, but they came here mainly to stay a while, find a job, make some money, and then eventually returning to their homes.
All Southern Italians are very insular, as I said before. The fear of strangers, the suspicion, the dialect, the fact that they lived in mountains remote from other mountains, so there never was much traveling in the south of Italy. But when you cross that sea and you survive, you have something behind you to say, well, I've gone pretty long from where I left, and I'm still alive, and I must have some momentum going here. So this is the land with a lot of momentum.
He thought after Garibaldi unified Italy that everybody was going to be living like kings and queens and princes and princes. But that didn't happen, so he says, I'm going to America and find the gold in the streets or in the trees. But, of course, all he found here was hard work.
He had to take what was given to him. So paying for attitude is what first the Mafia used as a realm of profit, as a means of exchange. So the Mafia became capitalists in this capitalist society by catering to the American desire for illegal goods. Now, the American desire for illegal goods, illegal commodities, be it drugs, be it liquor in an earlier period, being anything, is a very much an American attitude. It is not something that came from the